Delhi neighborhood of Burari, it's just another humid summer day. Shops are starting to open, and the familiar rhythm of life is picking up. But on street number 4 in Santnagar, one house is unnervingly still. The Chundawat family's grocery store, a cornerstone of the community, is dark. Its shutters, which are always up by 6 a.m., are still down. For a neighbor, Gurcharan Singh, this silence is more than strange, it's worrying. After his calls go unanswered, he walks over to the house and finds the front door unlocked. He pushes it open, calling out their names. The only reply he gets is a deep, chilling silence. What he found next wouldn't just scar the community forever. It would unravel a story so bizarre, so steeped in ritual and delusion, that it continues to haunt the entire nation. This is the story of how 3 generations of a single family, 11 people in total, were found dead in their home, leaving behind a mystery written in the pages of 11 cryptic diaries. When police arrived at the Chundawat home, they were met with a scene that just didn't make sense. This wasn't a typical crime scene. It was a macabre tableau, a silent, horrifying performance. In the central courtyard, 10 members of the family were found hanging from an iron mesh on the ceiling. They hung in a tight cluster, like the roots of a banyan tree, a detail that would later prove to be terrifyingly important. The victims ranged in age from the teens to their 50s. Every single one was blindfolded. Their mouths were taped shut, and their ears were plugged with cotton. Some had their hands and feet tied, but there were no signs of a struggle, no forced entry, and nothing of value was missing. In another room, the family matriarch, 80-year-old Narayani Devi, was found dead on the floor. The only living thing left in the house was the family dog, tied up on the terrace, pacing and whimpering. The first theory was murder, a home invasion of unimaginable cruelty. Police opened a murder case, completely baffled. How could one, or even several, attackers subdue and kill 11 people without a single neighbor hearing a sound, and without any of the victims fighting back? That total lack of resistance was the first and most profound puzzle. To really grasp the horror, you first have to know who the Chundawats were. By all accounts, they were a model family. They'd lived in the neighborhood for over 20 years, running a successful grocery store. Neighbors and friends described them as kind, religious, and perfectly normal. The family was headed by the matriarch, Narayani Devi, and her 2 sons, Bhavnesh and Lalit. Bhavnesh, the elder, was mild-mannered and responsible. Lalit, the younger son, was more charismatic. The home also held their wives, a widowed daughter, and 6 grandchildren. One of the grandchildren, 33-year-old Priyanka, had just gotten engaged 2 weeks earlier. The family was excitedly planning her wedding. CCTV footage from the night before showed the family preparing for the next day, just like always. Some were seen bringing stools and wires into the house, items that, in retrospect, were chilling preparations for their own deaths. They even ordered their last meal from a local restaurant. To the outside world, the Chundawats looked like a picture of harmony and success. But behind their closed doors, a very different reality was taking hold. As police searched the silent house for clues, they found the one thing that would unlock the entire mystery: 11 diaries, kept over 11 years. But these weren't personal journals. They were instruction manuals, guides on how to live and how to die. The pages were filled with handwritten notes, laying out commands on everything from how to run the family business to how to perform specific rituals for salvation or moksha. The most shocking part was the supposed source of these commands. The diaries claimed the instructions were being dictated by the family's dead patriarch, Bhopal Singh, who had passed away in 2007. The diary entries explained that his spirit was communicating through his youngest son, Lalit. Years earlier, Lalit had suffered an injury and temporarily lost his ability to speak. When his voice came back, he claimed he could now channel his dead father. The family, believing they had witnessed a miracle, started following his instructions without question. The diaries became their holy book. Entries described how their finances would improve if they followed the patriarch's guidance, and their business did expand. Priyanka's engagement was also seen as proof of the patriarch's divine help. Their faith in him was absolute. The diaries laid out the plan for the final horrifying ritual with chilling clarity. It was called the Banyan Tree Ritual, meant to thank the patriarch's spirit for the family's good fortune. The notes gave step-by-step instructions that perfectly matched the scene: how to tie their hands, how to cover their eyes and mouths, how to hang together in a formation like the roots of a banyan tree. Crucially, the diaries revealed the family never intended to die. They believed this was all a test of their faith. The last entries promised that the patriarch's spirit would appear and save them all at the last moment. One note even said, "Keep water in a cup. When it changes color, I will appear and save you." They were supposed to help each other untie their knots after this divine intervention. It wasn't a mass suicide in their minds. It was a temporary ritual that they believed would lead to a more powerful, enlightened life. It was a fatal mistake. With this discovery, the investigation turned from murder to a deep psychological puzzle. How could 11 educated people, even teenagers, believe such a story and follow it to their deaths? Experts point to a rare psychological condition, folie à famille, or shared psychotic disorder. This happens in close-knit, isolated families, where a delusion starts with one dominant person and spreads to the others. Lalit, likely traumatized by his father's death and past injuries, seems to have developed a psychotic disorder. His new role as the family's channel to their beloved patriarch gave him immense power. His delusions became the family's shared reality. Every success, their growing business, Priyanka's engagement, was seen as proof of his divine connection. Any doubt was likely treated as a spiritual failure. A psychological autopsy concluded that the deaths were the result of an accident during a ritual, and that none of the family members intended to end their lives. The Burari case is a chilling reminder of the power of belief and the fragility of the human mind. It makes us ask uncomfortable questions about family dynamics, mental health, and where we draw the line between faith and dangerous delusion. What do you believe really happened inside that house? Was it a clear case of shared psychosis, or were other forces at play? In the years since, life in Burari has slowly returned to normal. The house now has new tenants, but the story remains a chapter in the city's history. The 11 pipes found sticking out of the wall, 7 bent, 4 straight, became a haunting symbol of the 7 female and 4 male victims, even though police later found it was just a coincidence. The Burari deaths weren't the work of some monster. The horror came from inside the 4 walls of a loving home, born from grief, magnified by faith, and carried out through a shared delusion that promised salvation, but only brought death. It stands as a tragic monument to 11 people who followed their faith to the very end, stepping together into an abyss from which they truly believed they would be saved. The diaries hold their story, but the true mystery the one hidden deep inside the human psyche, remains profoundly and chillingly unsolved.